There are doors you are not supposed to open, truths your soul recognizes but your tongue fears to speak. For centuries, the mystic Ibn Arabi walked through those doors, and what he saw nearly destroyed the foundations of orthodoxy itself. His books were banned, his name whispered with reverence by some and cursed with fury by others. Scholars called him the greatest master, yet governments forbade his works from being read. What did he know that was so dangerous? He did not claim to invent these truths, he claimed to remember them, and in remembering he became a threat. Because when a human being remembers who they truly are, hierarchies crumble, power loses its grip, and the distance between the worshipper and the worshipped collapses into something terrifying. Intimacy. The 5 truths you are about to encounter are not theories, they are not philosophy. They are experiences wrapped in language, keys disguised as paradoxes. Ibn Arabi did not write for the curious. He wrote for those who had already tasted the edge of madness that comes when the veil between self and source begins to tear. If you have felt that tremor in your chest, that quiet knowing that everything you have been taught about separation is a lie, then these words are for you. But be warned. Once you see through the illusion, you cannot unsee it. Once the mirror is polished, it reflects without mercy. There is a cruelty in spiritual seeking. You fast, pray, meditate, discipline yourself, hoping one day to arrive. And the mystics, with the gentlest possible violence, tell you, you are already there. You have always been there. The journey was never about reaching, it was about remembering. The man who saw God in everything and everyone dared to say what others only felt. There is no you and I. There is only him, wearing countless faces. For centuries, scholars tried to silence this truth. Empires tried to erase it. They wanted rules, boundaries, and categories, and he offered infinity. He looked at the rulers and said, "You claim to protect the faith, but you only protect your fear." To the mystic, these were not insults, they were invitations. But to the world of ego, they were declarations of war. The more he spoke of Wahdat al-Wujud, the unity of being, the more he was accused of blasphemy. Because unity destroys hierarchy. Unity means no one owns God, no one controls truth, no one has a monopoly on salvation. And that is why his teachings became forbidden. Too many would lose power if the people began to see God in themselves. The mystic Hallaj stood in the marketplace and declared, "I am the truth," and they killed him for it. Ibn Arabi saw what happened to Hallaj, and he understood. The world is not ready to hear that the distance between creator and creation is an illusion maintained by fear. So he wrapped the truth in metaphor, in poetry, in symbols only the awake could decode. He called it Wahdat al-Wujud, the unity of being. Not that you are God in your limited egoic sense, not that the finite equals the infinite, but that existence itself has only one source, one essence, one reality. Everything you see, touch, taste, experience, every mountain, every tear, every breath, is not separate from that singular reality. It is the manifestation of it. God revealing himself to himself through infinite forms. You are not a separate entity looking for God somewhere out there. You are the place where God looks at himself. This is not blasphemy. This is the deepest surrender, because if you understand this, truly understand it, the ego has nowhere left to hide. There is no separate self to claim credit, no isolated identity to defend. There is only the one wearing your face, breathing your breath, seeing through your eyes. But society cannot function on this truth. Religion becomes unnecessary when people realize the divine is not distant. Hierarchies collapse when worshippers discover they do not need intermediaries. Kings lose their divine mandate when subjects understand that the same reality inhabits all. So the scholars branded him heretic. They called his teaching pantheism, though it was nothing of the sort. They feared what would happen if the masses awakened to their own divine nature. Ibn Arabi knew the danger. He said, "When you know yourself, you know your Lord. Not because you become God, but because the mirror of your heart, once polished, reflects what was always there." The separation was never real. It was a pedagogical necessity, a mercy, a way to make relationship possible. But the ultimate truth, union was never broken. For Ibn Arabi, the entire universe is a self-disclosure of God, known as tajalli, where God reveals his attributes and names through creation. The world is not independent of God, but it is not identical to him either. Instead, it is a reflection of the divine essence. Everything that exists and is experienced in reality is the manifestation of different divine names. Every form you encounter, every face you meet, every breath you take is not just matter. It is a living expression of divine creativity unfolding in time. This is the first forbidden truth, and it changes everything. There is a loneliness at the heart of eternity, a treasure hidden unknown, desiring to be known. In the Hadith Qudsi that Ibn Arabi frequently quoted in his writings, God says to David, "I was a hidden treasure, and I loved to be known, so I created creation to be known." Creation is not punishment. It is not a test designed by a distant judge. It is God's need to witness himself. And for that, he needed a mirror capable of reflecting all his names, all his attributes, all the infinite dimensions of his being. Angels reflect mercy, but not wrath. Fire reflects power, but not gentleness. Every element of creation reflects a fragment of the divine. But only one creature reflects them all: the human being. You are not an accident. You are not a biological coincidence wandering through a meaningless universe. You are al-insan al-kamil, the perfect human, the complete mirror. Not because you have achieved perfection, but because your design, your very structure, is capable of reflecting the totality. You are the meeting point of heaven and earth, the isthmus between the infinite and the finite. According to Ibn Arabi in Fusus al-Hikam, the perfect human represents the ultimate purpose of creation and the most complete manifestation of divine attributes. He wrote, "Muhammad's wisdom is uniqueness, because he is the most perfect existent creature of this human species. For this reason, the command began with him and was sealed with him. He was a prophet while Adam was between water and clay, and his elemental structure is the seal of the prophets. This is why your heart feels too large for your chest sometimes, why your longing has no name, no object that satisfies it. You are not broken, you are remembering that you were created as the answer to a divine question: who am I? Being the isthmus between heaven and earth, the perfect human fulfills God's desire to be known, and God's presence can be realized through him by others. Additionally, through self-manifestation, one acquires divine knowledge, which is the primordial spirit of Muhammad and all its perfection. Al-Arabi details that the perfect human is of the cosmos to the divine and conveys the divine spirit to the cosmos. Ibn Arabi distinguishes between the animal man and the perfect human who has realized his true potential as God's vicegerent. The former remains at the level of mere biological humanity, while the latter has actualized the divine image within. Man who knows his supreme ontological status is the real subject of this ontology, the perfect man. Man who is ignorant of his status and value does not deserve to be the subject of this ontology. When you look within and find mercy, you are seeing God's mercy. When you find rage, you are seeing God's wrath. When you discover patience or jealousy or love or fear, you are witnessing the divine attributes playing out in the theater of your soul. The perfect human embodies all divine names in balance: mercy and majesty, beauty and power, knowledge and mystery. But here is where the danger lies. If you are the mirror God needs, then you are not disposable. You are not insignificant. The cosmos depends on your awakening. Through your self-realization, God realizes himself. This truth threatens every system built on the idea that you are small, sinful, unworthy. It threatens the institutions that profit from your forgetfulness. You are not here to beg for scraps of grace from a distant throne. You are here to become the living expression of what God is. And when you realize this, the old game is over. This is the second forbidden truth. What if everything you see is a dream? Not in the trivial sense that life is meaningless or unreal, but in the mystical sense that reality is imagination crystallized. Ibn Arabi taught that the entire cosmos exists in a realm called Barzakh, the intermediate world between pure spirit and pure matter. It is neither fully physical nor fully spiritual. It is where meanings take form. Imagination is not a mere faculty of the mind. It is the essence of existence itself, a divine tool that bridges opposites, connects realities, and reveals hidden truths. Ibn Arabi describes it as the realm where majesty and beauty converge, a space where the divine unveils itself in perceptible forms. Imagination serves as a canvas for divine artistry, with a dual nature, simultaneously tangible and abstract, near and far, a theatre for seekers and mystics alike. The barzakh is a mystical realm that merges the sensory and the unseen, where abstract meanings take tangible forms. It is neither purely physical nor entirely spiritual, representing a profound intersection of realities. Examples of barzakh include: knowledge appears as milk, steadfastness in religion manifests as a chain, and angels and divine beings appear in human-like forms. Ibn Arabi considers the barzakh the meeting point of two seas, where the vast expanse of meanings converges with sensory perceptions. If, on the one hand, Ibn Arabi employs the term imagination to refer to the barzakh between the spiritual and corporeal world, on the other he uses it to describe the whole of created reality, which is an isthmus between being and non-existence. Very literally, the universe is a barzakh between us and non-existence. Imagine this. You close your eyes and dream. In that dream you see people, landscapes, emotions. They feel real. They have weight, consequences, narratives. But when you wake, you realize those forms were not solid. They were expressions of something deeper. Thoughts, memories, archetypes given temporary shape. Ibn Arabi says this is exactly what the waking world is, a divine dream, God imagining himself into infinite forms. Imagination shapes our dreams, allowing us to perceive truths hidden from our waking consciousness. In this space, the past and future merge, unknown languages are understood, and divine mysteries are revealed. Ibn Arabi explains how dreams serve as a reflection of the unseen, offering glimpses of spiritual truths. Dreams are not mere reflections of the subconscious mind or random images produced by the brain. They are divine messages, doors into the hidden realities of existence. You participate in this every moment. Your thoughts, intentions, and awareness are not passive observations. They are acts of creation. When you envision something deeply, you bring it from the realm of possibility into the realm of probability. When you focus your inner vision on a quality, patience, love, courage, you draw it from the unseen treasury into your lived experience. The barzakh discriminates between what becomes reality and what remains in the realm of pure potential. This is why Ibn Arabi emphasized the importance of imaginative worship. He quoted the prophetic saying, "Worship God as if you see him," not metaphorically. Actually, train your inner eye to perceive the divine presence in every breath, every moment. Because that inner vision is not fantasy, it is the doorway to the deeper layers of reality. Worship in Islam involves more than physical acts. It engages the imaginative and spiritual faculties. Ibn Arabi emphasizes the importance of envisioning Allah in one's worship, understanding the two levels of perfection, seeing Allah directly in spiritual vision and worshipping as though you see him, rooted in imagination and spiritual insight. Imagination helps seekers visualize divine realities, enhancing their connection with the Creator. But if the world is imagination, then who controls the dreaming? This is the forbidden part. If you realize that your awareness shapes reality, that your inner state influences the outer world, then you are no longer a passive victim of circumstance. You are a co-creator, and that power terrifies those who prefer you compliant, asleep, believing that life simply happens to you. Ibn Arabi taught that mystics and those with spiritual insight develop what he called the eye of the imagination. This inner vision allows them to see beyond the surface, to perceive the hidden dimensions where meanings dwell before they materialize. They see angels, spiritual realities, the architecture of the unseen, not because they are hallucinating, but because they have refined their perception to include the layers most people ignore. The imaginative faculty continues to operate beyond death, shaping the soul's experiences in the afterlife. Ibn Arabi describes death as a transition, where the soul perceives divine truths through imaginative forms. The symbolic imagery of death, such as its appearance as a ram being slaughtered, signifies the soul's departure. Imagination reassures the dying soul, transforming fear into clarity and peace. This is why dreams matter. why visions are real, why synchronicities occur. The barzakh is always active, always mediating between your inner world and the outer manifestation. And the more conscious you become of this process, the more you step into your role as a participant in the divine imagination. The third truth is this: you are not observing reality, you are imagining it into being, and once you know that, everything changes. You have been taught to see division everywhere: body versus soul, heaven versus earth, sacred versus profane. Ibn Arabi came to erase those lines. He taught that the zahir, the outer manifest world, and the batin, the inner hidden reality, are not opposites. They are two faces of the same truth. The Quran itself declares, He is the first and the last, the manifest and the hidden. Most people read this as poetry. Ibn Arabi read it as cosmology. God is not hidden in some distant heaven, while the world is godless matter. The outer world is the direct manifestation of the inner divine reality. Every form you see is a tajalli, a self-disclosure of God's names and attributes. For Ibn Arabi, the path to understanding both the material and spiritual dimensions of existence lies in self-awareness. It is through this awareness that we begin to grasp the mysteries of creation. This divine secret opens the door to a deeper exploration of both our inner and outer worlds, highlighting the profound unity between the two. In Futuhat al-Makkiyah, Ibn Arabi writes that through divine guidance and spiritual purification, the human heart can access knowledge beyond ordinary perception. This knowledge is not of the physical realm, but of the unseen, the hidden dimensions of reality that are normally veiled from our senses. The secret of the unseen emphasizes that our potential is far greater than we may realize. The zahir represents the external material world, while the batin represents the inner truths that lie beneath the surface. The outer reality is what we can perceive with our senses, while the inner reality can only be apprehended through spiritual insight and inner vision. This divine secret reveals that to understand the truth, one must look beyond the physical world and into the deeper hidden meanings of existence. Look at a tree. The outer form, bark, leaves, roots, is the zahir. But the inner life force, the intelligence organizing its growth, the beauty it expresses, that is the batin. They are inseparable. The tree is not just physical matter waiting to be transcended. It is a living expression of divine creativity. The form and the meaning are one. This applies to you as well. Your body is not a prison for your soul. Your emotions are not obstacles to enlightenment. The outer dimension of your life, your relationships, your work, your struggles, is the manifestation of your inner state. And your inner state is the localized expression of divine attributes. The boundary you feel between inside and outside is an illusion of perception. It is through the exploration of both the zahir and the batin that one comes to know the divine. The zahir alone is insufficient for understanding the ultimate truth. It is only when we turn our gaze inward to the batin that we uncover the divine mysteries hidden in plain sight. Ibn Arabi taught that everything in creation is a sign pointing back to its source. The Quran says, "We will show them our signs in the horizons and within themselves until it becomes clear to them that it is the truth." The horizons, the outer world, within themselves, the inner world. Both are signs. Both are sacred. The division is artificial, a tool of thought, not a feature of reality. When you understand this, sacredness stops being confined to mosques, churches, temples. Every moment becomes holy. Every encounter becomes a meeting with the divine in disguise. You stop dividing your life into spiritual time and mundane time, because you realize the mundane is where the spiritual is most nakedly revealed. But this truth is dangerous, because it dismantles the gatekeepers. If the outer and inner are one, if the divine is fully present in every moment, then you do not need special access. You do not need permission to encounter the sacred. The kingdom is not in some distant afterlife. It is here now, in the texture of this breath, this heartbeat, this choice. Ibn Arabi wrote that those who perceive only the zahir are blind to meaning, and those who seek only the batin while rejecting the zahir are lost in abstraction. The mystic sees both at once. The form and the essence, the wave and the ocean, the self and the self. Perhaps the most profound secret that Ibn Arabi reveals is the role of love in creation. For him, love is not simply an emotion or a fleeting feeling. It is the very foundation of existence. Allah created the universe out of love, and it is through love that humanity comes to know the divine. This is the fourth forbidden truth. The sacred and the ordinary are not two. And when you see through that illusion, every step becomes prayer, every word becomes revelation, every glance becomes recognition. There is a cruelty in the seeking itself. You search for God in rituals, in books, in the words of saints. You fast, pray, meditate, discipline yourself, hoping one day to arrive. And Ibn Arabi, with the gentlest possible violence, tells you, you are already there. You have always been there. The journey was never about reaching. It was about remembering. Do not look for God in the heavens or on earth. Look within your own heart. This is not metaphor, it is instruction. The divine presence you long for is not distant. It is closer than your jugular vein, as the Quran says. It is the very awareness with which you read these words, the consciousness behind your thoughts, the stillness beneath your anxiety, the knowing that has always been watching. You are not a separate self on a quest to find God. You are the form God takes when he seeks himself. This is the ultimate paradox. The seeker is the sought, the lover is the beloved. The question is the answer dressed in confusion. Ibn Arabi taught that the real spiritual path is not about acquiring something new. It is about removing what obscures what already is. He called it polishing the mirror. Your heart is already a perfect mirror, but layers of rust have covered it. Ego, conditioning, fear, the lies you told yourself to survive. The spiritual journey is not ascent. It is excavation. You are not building a self. You are uncovering the self that was always there. When the rust is removed, the divine nature reflects without distortion. And then you realize the profound, shattering, liberating truth. You were never separate. The distance was a teaching device, a way to create the experience of longing so that union could be tasted, savored, known. But the union was never broken. This is why the mystics weep, not from sadness but from recognition. Not because they found God, but because they realized God was never lost. They were looking for their own face in every mirror, and the cosmos was reflecting it back the entire time. But this truth is the most forbidden of all. Because if you realize you are already what you seek, the spiritual marketplace collapses. The gurus, the rituals, the systems that promise enlightenment in 10 steps or 3 lifetimes, they lose their power. Not because they are false, but because they are scaffolding for a building that was always complete. Ibn Arabi did not say, stop practicing. He said, practice from wholeness, not from lack. Worship not to earn divine love, but as the expression of the divine love you already are. Seek not because you are lost, but because seeking is the game consciousness plays with itself. The journey is the destination wearing the mask of time. The prophets knew this, the saints lived this. And Ibn Arabi, the greatest master, spent his entire life pointing to this one truth in 1,000 different ways. You are not separate from what you seek. You have always been the answer. And once you know this, truly know this, the seeking ends. Not because you found something, but because you realized there was never anything to find. The treasure was always in your chest. The light was always behind your eyes. The kingdom was always within. This is the 5th forbidden truth. And it destroys everything you thought you knew. Now you have seen them, the 5 truths Ibn Arabi whispered across centuries, wrapped in paradox and poetry so they would survive the fires of orthodoxy. The truths that empires tried to erase, that scholars branded heresy, that governments banned because they knew. Awakened people do not bow easily. You are not separate from God. You are the mirror God needed to see himself. The world is divine imagination made visible. The outer and inner are one, and you have always been what you seek. These are not beliefs to adopt, they are recognitions that occur when the veil thins. You cannot force them, you cannot fake them, but once they occur, everything shifts. The rules change, the players change. The game itself is revealed as a divine play, a cosmic hide-and-seek, where God pretends to be lost, so the finding can be ecstatic. Ibn Arabi knew the cost of this knowing. He saw what happened to those who spoke too plainly. So he wrote for those with ears to hear, hearts to feel, souls ready to shatter and reassemble in the image of truth. He did not try to convince the scholars or convert the masses. He left breadcrumbs for the ones who were already walking the pathless path. And now the question becomes, what do you do with these truths? Do you continue pretending you are small, separate, powerless? Or do you live from the recognition that you are the place where the infinite meets the finite, where eternity breathes in time, where God wears your face and calls it human? The choice has always been yours, not because you are separate from the divine will, but because your choosing is the divine will in motion. Every decision you make is God deciding. Every breath you take is God breathing. Every moment of confusion or clarity is God experiencing himself through the unique lens of your existence. There is no escape from this, no neutral ground. You are always either moving toward remembrance or sinking deeper into forgetfulness. And the cosmos does not judge either path, it simply experiences them both. But something in you knows, has always known. Before you were taught to forget, before the world told you who to be, there was a knowing. A quiet certainty that you are more than this body, this story, this brief flicker of identity. Ibn Arabi called it fitra, the primordial nature every soul carries. The original imprint of unity before the world convinced you of separation. The forbidden truths are not new information. They are ancient memory surfacing through the cracks in your conditioning. And once they surface, you cannot unknow them. You can ignore them, distract yourself, build elaborate structures of belief to avoid their implications. But they will wait, patiently, eternally, because they are not coming from outside you. They are coming from the deepest part of what you are. This is the unbearable weight of knowing. You cannot go back to sleep. Once the mirror is polished, it reflects. Once the heart awakens, it recognizes itself in everything. Once the illusion of separation cracks, the light pours through and you realize you have been living in a dream of exile from a home you never actually left. Ibn Arabi died in Damascus in 1240, but his words refuse to die. They circulate in underground circles, whispered among seekers, banned by authorities who understand their power. Because these truths do not comfort. They destroy. They do not confirm your beliefs. They dissolve them. They do not offer you salvation. They reveal you were never damned. And perhaps that is the most forbidden truth of all. You do not need saving. You need remembering. You need to stop searching and start seeing. You need to recognize that every saint, prophet, and mystic who ever lived was simply showing you your own face. The treasure was never hidden from you. You were hidden from the treasure by the belief that you were something other than it. And now, in this moment, reading these words, that belief trembles, cracks, falls away like dust from a mirror finally wiped clean. What you do next is between you and the you that was never separate. But know this, Ibn Arabi left these truths not as burdens, but as keys, not as doctrines to defend, but as invitations to dissolve, not as information to hoard, but as fire to burn away everything false until only the real remains. And the real has always been here, closer than breath, nearer than thought, waiting for you to stop seeking and simply see. They see that the light of being shines even through the cracks of despair. This is the truth hidden in Ibn Arabi's most dangerous teaching, that the real is not separate from illusion, that the light is hidden in the shadow, and that the seeker's fall is part of their flight. God forbade you to reveal these truths because revelation destroys the game. But the game was always mercy. And when mercy is complete, the game ends. Not in annihilation, but in recognition. Not in loss, but in the discovery that you were always home, always whole. Always the answer to the question you spent lifetimes asking. Welcome back to yourself. You have been gone too long,